So just to give you an example of some of the specific pledges. So McDonald's, well, the overall initiative says that companies shouldn't market in elementary schools. Well, here's McDonald's with its Passport to Play program, which is in 31,000 elementary schools. Of course, because McDonald's gets to decide, well, this isn't really advertising, right? This is, in fact, part of McDonald's good programs, right? They're out there. Ronald is helping kids learn how to exercise because they need that, right, Susan? Okay, here's PepsiCo, largest snack food company in the world. Doesn't just own PepsiCo beverages, but also owns Frito-Lay. So baked Cheetos are now in this category of A-OK products to market to kids. And I put this the other part of the packaging on here, which I just thought was hilarious because they explain that when choosing a cheese-flavored snack, because you often have that need to choose this particular cheese-flavored snack is a smart choice, and this is their branding. This is their self-defined nutrition seal program, I call it. The Smart Spot checkmark logo, because green means healthy and checkmark means A-OK. Nothing to do with the federal government, by the way, not a federal government endorsed program, rather a self-defined nutrition program. But basically Pepsi says that this product's okay because compared to their regular, really bad, cheesy snack products, this has only 1 gram of saturated fat, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, if your measure of comparison is the basic crap, then less crap might be a little bit better. So, and then Kraft similarly has a self-defined seal program they call the Sensible Solution. So now all of Kraft's Lunchable products and all the other kinds of Post cereals, Kraft owns virtually every other product in the supermarket. So they have decided that it's okay to now market their products with this self-defined seal program to kids, and here's one example of that. It's one of my favorite. Cadbury Adams is the owner of this lovely, nutritious product for kids, Bubblicious Bubblegum, and this is part of their pledge, that they pledge to market Bubblicious Bubblegum to kids under this great new self-regulatory program. So that's it for the food industry side. You can see I'm not a real fan of these pledges, but this whole scenario of food companies putting out these pledges has really been very effective, been very successful at basically quelling any public debate now about what we should do about marketing to kids. People will say, well, food companies, my mother who, should know better, actually congratulated me the day that these announcements came out. Oh, Michele must be so happy, the food industry. I'm like, Mom, and she's copying other people on the email. I'm like, no, really, I don't want to take credit for this, please, So, that just, they are fooling people very well. But where did the food industry get this idea anyway of self-regulation, right? It's not anything specific to one industry. The alcohol industry for decades has been fooling people with this concept of self-regulation. And again, it always comes out of a threat of regulation. And decades ago, the alcohol industry was under fire, along with the tobacco industry. And tobacco industry, by the way, did at one time have self-regulation guidelines. They got surpassed by the hefty litigation, and now there are other rules that govern their advertising, so they don't really need it. Alcohol, however, has not gone down that road yet. And so the alcohol industry has its own set of self-regulatory guidelines, and I want to just take you through some of those. And it's governed basically by the trade group. So there are alcohols essentially divided up for purposes of thinking about marketing to youth into 2 trade groups, distilled spirits and beer. And these are just some examples of the types of self-regulatory rules that are meant to protect youth. And most of it has to do with the exposure that youth that media ads basically can only be in media where at least 70% of the audience, and this again, vague language, is reasonably expected to be at least age 21, the legal drinking age. How you measure that, who knows? They tend to rely on Nielsen ratings, which by virtually everyone in the field says it's a lot of nonsense, but that's all we have. And then there are some other rules, like billboards cannot be within 500 feet of a school. Models must be at least 25 years old, and no images that primarily appeal to whatever that means. Again, very vague language. And my favorite, no Santa Claus. Can't have Santa Claus downing a Budweiser, although Coke is obviously still okay. So let's take a look at this idea of models must be at least 25 years old. Okay, so here are two ads, one for Bud Light from Maxim magazine. I don't know about you, but that girl on the far left, what do you think? Maybe 17 at the most, right? And then this other ad was in a trade magazine recently, and I went around my office. Now, granted, we are very biased at Marin Institute, but there was definitely no one who thought she looked over 18. And so I actually submitted a complaint to the Distilled Spirits Council, which anyone can do, file a complaint, and they came back and said, oh, no, it's fine because the model herself is actually 27. I said, oh, okay, well, in that case. So there you go, that takes care of that. So in keeping with the theme of the conference, I wanted to point out some of the sex-related rules of the trade group. So the Distilled Spirits Council says we can't have any lewd or indecent images or language. Right, yeah, I know, right, I know. This is, but this is what they say, what can I tell you? And then ads should not rely on sexual prowess or sexual success. And my favorite, ads should, quote, reflect generally accepted contemporary is a very important word because we know everything is okay as long as it's contemporary, standards of good taste. And then finally, should not degrade women and other groups who are included in the should not degrade category. So let's see how all that's working. Here we go, Svedka, one of our favorite companies, who's just really up there in the bad boy category of advertising. This is their latest campaign. Many of you, I'm sure, if you live in Boston, you have to have seen this Fembot marketing campaign, because even on Beacon Street, right at the corner where the Holiday Inn, there are two back-to-back transit ads where they're at the T-stop with Svedka ads. You haven't seen them, take a look. Of course, I notice them everywhere now. One of the ad on the right is actually in the current issue of Vanity Fair. So now they're into this sort of marketing around the election. So this campaign has been complained about, not by me, someone else complained about this to Discus, and they said, no problem, we don't think this violates any bad taste rules or degrading women, not a problem. So there you go. The Beer Institute has similar language. They say romance and flirting is okay, although nothing sexually explicit, whatever that means. No graphic nudity, I guess maybe nudity, but no, I don't know what that means. No lewd or indecent images or language in the context presented. Okay, so let's see how that goes. Well, we have Coors Light ad. I guess this is in context. I'm not sure. It's in King Magazine. They did a model search last year. There you go. And then, of course, Budweiser, never missing an opportunity to exploit women's bodies, this one turning them into essentially a label for the product. This was in last year's swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated, and I'm told Sports Illustrated has about 21% of its audience is underage. So it fits within the 30% rule, but there are some, like my colleague David Jernigan, the expert on marketing to youth and alcohol, who says the rule should really be 15%, that we should have a limit, no more than 15% of the audience being underage, because that is the percent of in the general population. So he's been pushing for a reduction from 30 to 15%. I'm not sure how I feel about that, just because I think we shouldn't be relying on self-regulation. Anyway, so to give you an idea of how the review process goes, you might think, are there hordes of people combing over the ads and really making sure that these ads are fitting with these guidelines? Okay, well, here we go. Here's what the Beer Institute did last year. They waited for the complaints to come to them. There is no internal review process. And here, in all of 2007, there were a whopping 4 complaints. Okay, to put that in perspective, last year's Super Bowl had 8 ads for Budweiser alone. Okay, so, but this is the whole year. There were 4 complaints, 3 for Bud Light, no surprise really there, and then another one for Michelob, and all 4 of these complaints happened to be based on the portrayal of some kind of illegal activity, which is not allowed in the guidelines. So, for example, drunk driving or assault, like the rock, paper, scissors ad, remember that one where the guy gets clobbered with the big rock? That's assault, that is illegal. But, of course, there is a gaping exception, and all 4 of these complaints were readily dismissed by the Beer Institute. Why? Because they fell under the parody or spoof exception. We were just kidding, those Bud Light ads when we're just, beating up each other. It was a joke. It's obviously a joke. No problem. Game over. That's their decision. And there, of course, is no appeals process like there might be in an actual court of law.